Good evening, everyone, and welcome once again to the Writer's Room. I am your co-host, Kat Rocha, the night editor, and with me, as always, is...
J. Ishiro Finney, author and alien in a human suit.
And this evening, we have our very special guest, Daniel Humphreys. Hello, Daniel. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Excellent. So, Daniel, tell us about yourself. What types of books do you like writing?
So I currently have two series. First is a Z Day, which is a post-apocalyptic science fiction series about basically zombies. Try to be a little bit more, come up with a semi-scientific, realistic way that happened, and focus more on long after the initial outbreak. So the first book, you get a glimpse of the day everything starts going down, and then it really kicks off 8 years later. So it's to me the more I'm a fan of zombie stuff, but it seems like it's always everyone is reacting and running around like chickens with their head cut off. I was more interested in telling a story about the people that figured out the rules and are successful, and then how they deal with the situation as they've got it think figured out, and then it changes on them, and they have to go from there. And then I've also got an urban fantasy series, Paxton Locke, which follows a young man. It's basically a wizard private investigator. He starts out going around getting rid of ghosts for people, charging them money. He advertises on Craigslist. So, but it kind of branches off into some alternate history and world-ending ramifications and stuff like that. And he's in over his head most of the time, and he gets the crap beaten out of him pretty much every book, which has been kind of funny because people complain about that, and it's like, well,
Well, with PI Noir, you're not doing it right if your character hasn't had the crap kicked out of him and he's gone through hell.
right, absolutely, and it's funny. I've had people leave me reviews saying, "Oh, I'm not going to read this series anymore because he's incompetent and he's getting beat up all the time." And then, I've had other people say, "Well, this guy's a Mary Sue. He always manages to." It's like, well, can't have it both ways. Which is it? But he's fun to write. He's probably my favorite character. So.
Well, that definitely sounds like something up my alley. I'm a huge Ghostbusters fan, so the idea of him advertising on Craigslist.
I'm very careful not to say Ghostbusters, but yeah, that's pretty much what he starts out as. So
Detective Ghost Hunter.
Yeah, there you go. So he tries to. I think the fun aspect I try to do is it's maybe 50-50 where people call him and think they have problems and they're just nuts. But then there's people that actually have problems, and usually what he does is he charges the crazy people money, and then he gives the people that have actual problems. He gives them, he just helps them out. So.
Oh, that's an interesting take.
Yeah. So.
Oh, I like that.
So what's the wizard element on him?
So it starts his. I'm trying to think. I don't know how much to say. I don't. I like spoilers, but I know some people don't. He's got a really messed up family. Basically, his mother was a professor, and she somehow got her hands on some ancient artifacts and learned how to do magic. And in trying to develop her power, she went way over the line where she's doing experiments on Paxton, which he didn't know about it, and then she ends up sacrificing her husband to try and do a ritual. So the book is kind of it enters into him making a life after that's happened to him, and then his mom eventually ends up breaking out of jail, and what happens after that point, because she tries to pick up where she left off.
Oh, interesting.
Okay, so on the what is it, book one, Fade?
Right.
What's with the motorhome?
So my publisher came up with a tagline. It's Harry Dresden meets Supernatural, but cool cars sold separately. So he doesn't have a cool, the 60s muscle car he's driving around. He's got an RV, so he, drives around the RV and sleeps in Walmart parking lots. And when he has to, be a little bit more incognito, he's got a dirt bike on the back of his his vehicle. So yeah,
I like that.
Yeah.
So is that also his office?
Pretty much, yeah. He's made some modifications to it. He's got some secret compartments where he keeps things hidden, and it's his home away from home. So
Very nice. Okay, so for me personally, when I'm reading, urban fantasy or supernatural fiction, and it's taking place in a modern day setting, one thing that I look for is basically what is the power level as far as supernatural. And what I mean by that is like because it's in your description, Harry Dresden, he's constantly interacting with supernatural creatures. He's constantly getting into a supernatural setting. And then you have, of course, Harry Potter, which goes full bore fantasy. But then there's other stories where the supernatural is more on a down low, more on a, I don't want to say realistic level, but
So you mean a detective who is just a detective with possibly a curse on her or something, and the supernatural element is in the shadows behind the scenes, and only people paying attention notice. Like say Case File Arkham.
Exactly. So where would you put your story to give the audience an idea of what they're in for?
He kind of progresses a little bit each book. In the first book, he really only has a couple of spells he can do, and basically, in each story, as he gets more and more challenged, he is learning or figuring out ways to modify what the talents that he does have to kind of cope with what he's dealing with. Because it ends up, the end of the first book, I kind of introduce the concept that there is a government agency that knows what's going on, and basically they're the guys that try to keep everything, hidden, and oh, this is swamp gas. It wasn't anything crazy, you know what you're talking about, So, and he ends up on their radar, and they start investigating him, and there's some miscommunication there where he ends up getting thrown into their magical equivalent of Gitmo, and has to make his way out of there. And
Magical Gitmo. I like that. So what is in the Magical Gitmo?
I want that on a postcard.
I have referred to it a couple of times. So there's a facility outside DC that they call the Menagerie, and that's that I explore that quite a bit in the third book, and most of those are dangerous, but not like super villains. It's just more like monsters and things like that they're just keeping locked up so they don't eat campers, that sort of thing. Then there is an actual facility underneath Guantanamo called the Pit, and that's where the worst of the worst go. And that's kind of where, when he is captured, he's keeping him in the one facility, but they're eventually planning on moving him to the Pit because of all the crazy things that have happened around him. And they don't know him, and they know who his mom is, and it's like, well, shoot, he's apple can't fall too far from the tree, so this guy's rotten too. We got to make sure he's taken care of. But ends up it's not really a spoiler, I guess, but because it's on the back cover of the books, but he ends up working for them, and he's got a team, and kind of go into a little bit of alternate history there, where the special agents, like the heavy hitters, the A team of this agency which is called Division M, are alternate are figures from history that you would recognize. Don't.
Go ahead. I mean, I don't think
so one of them is Doc Holliday, who's
cool.
Basically, I kind of play around with the mythology. So he's not really a vampire, but he kind of is, and he's basically super strong, super fast. Which for a gunfighter, that's a great benefit. And then Doc Holliday's partner is Elliot Ness, who's been cursed, and if he gets too angry, he turns into a monster. So basically, hulks out into something that looks like the kind of a cross between the Wolfman and Mr. Hyde. And then there is Georgie, who's George Patton, and who has a magical mech suit. So yeah. So the cover of the fourth book has a picture as a artist's interpretation of what Georgie's mech suit looks like. So it's basically magic powered, and so has machine guns and
okay, so
all kinds of fun
5,
stuff.
huh?
Yeah, Sacred Radiance is the one. It's got Georgie on the cover.
Oh, the purple one. There you go.
Yeah. So
let's see if we can get a close up on this thing. Nice, kind of a RoboCop suit there.
Yeah,
I like that it's got runes on it.
So yeah, that's in the system, the magical system that they use is you can exert magic into a rune and use it for effects. So basically, they've inscribed the armor with that, and that powers it and keeps it going. So and Paxton ends up using that in the next book for his own protection. So
very cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
So then this magic world does lean more towards the fantasy side of things. Is that correct?
Yeah, for sure. I try to keep it, somewhat grounded. He's not, he's not a Harry Dresden where he can basically, nuke a city if he gets mad enough. It's mostly just, trying to figure out what he can do and, with what he knows how to do, and, picking up new tricks along the way, sort of thing. Like in the first book, one of the limitations is his own personal energy, or so like his telekinesis. He can grab a can of soda from 20 feet away and bring it to him, but he can't throw like a huge boulder because he would not physically be able to make that exertion. So so that's a kind of a limitation he works around and that sort of thing. So. But
I see a lot of dragons.
Yeah, so they're extinct up until the end, up until the end of one of the books, and then he has to figure that out. So it's a pretty wild fight.
So if you were to give kind of a defining characteristic of your detective here, Paxton, what kind of guy is he?
He's a guy that wants to do the right thing, and he is stubborn, and he's not going to give up. So even if there's a good reason why he shouldn't do the right thing, he's going to do the right thing. So even if it gets him into trouble, and it does, it gets him into trouble in a lot of ways. So
very cool. How many books are in the series, or will there be in the series once it's complete?
Like I said, the fifth one just came out. I'm working on number 6 now. I've got, I think, up to 9 or 10 sketched out. So as long as I keep getting ideas, I'll keep putting them out. Like I said, I really
cases for him to crack.
Right, yeah. And the fun thing I do is, the first 3 books are primarily, Paxton trying to deal with his mom, take care of that situation. I try to have like a primary antagonist and a secondary antagonist, and then the secondary picks up and carries the story forward. So the main antagonist of books 4 and 5 was introduced in the second book, and his power grew throughout the following books until he was the big bad of number 5, and and then other people that have shown up in those books are now kind of stepping forward, which. Oh, awesome. Thank you. I hope you enjoy it.
Very cool. And I appreciate also that you have it available on Audible as well. I don't have time to sit and read, so I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm not much of an audiobook guy, but the audiobook fans are some of the just most rabid, and they just are really into it, and that's awesome. I've got a great narrator that I really love named Scott Bennett, and he just does an amazing job. And yeah, and whenever the audiobooks come out, man, people are jumping for joy. And I feel bad because Scott's a busy guy, and it's kind of the logistics of doing the audio. We just put out the fourth one in audio, and he's going to start working on the fifth one here in the next few months. But I feel bad, for the people that they like that they do the audio, because it's like I want you to be able to get into it, but it takes a little bit more time sometimes. So yeah.
So how hands-on are you with working with him?
At this, I mean, he's like I said, he's done the first 4 books and he's knocked them out of the park. So I mean, he has really found the character's voice, and I let him work his magic. He does a great job. So
very cool.
Yeah.
So should we move on to your other very popular series,
Sure.
maybe even better known?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, you said so this was your World Z? Did I
Z Day? Yeah.
Z Day.
Yeah.
Now, before we turned on the mics, you had mentioned that this was the story that just wouldn't leave you.
You didn't want to write it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Talk about that.
So I had a job where I drove around a lot, and I would see these locations. So the book is basically in the area around where I live. I mean, I've renamed a lot of some of the places, but it's pretty much where I live. And I would drive by, and there was the phone company has a depot down south of my house where they've got all the telephone poles stored, and I'm like, if you needed to build a fence against zombies, you run down and grab a bunch of those, and you'd be pretty well set. So, and it just kind of, I mean, I call it, it's like the monkey in the cage in my head was like, just beating on the bars, write the story. And I finally said, okay, fine. Cause I had the idea for the Paxton series at that time, and I was starting to outline it and everything. And that's what I really wanted to write, cause I'm like, man, I'm excited about this. This is cool. I want to do this. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to get this. I'm going to write it. I'm not going to, it's going to be the whole story. I mean, it's over 600 pages. It's a huge book. I'm going to get it all out. It's going to be done, and we're going to call it good. And I put it out, and I'm writing fade, and I'm like, crap. I know what I need. I need the second story. I know what I got to do there, and I got I got a finalist for the Dragon Award on the first one. And it was just like, man, I can't just leave people hanging. I mean, people are emailing me, hey, what happens next? What happens next? I'm like, there wasn't really anything going to happen next. And then the dang monkey popped up again. He's like, hey, we got to do this. The zombies are doing this now. What are you going to do?
How does your zombie story differ from, well, let's face it, that is a very well-explored genre.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So it's kind of funny. I was trying to, when I decided I was going to write it, I sat down and I said, okay, I don't want to do, the mystery thing where, you never find out why it happened or, who did it. I want to be able to say, okay, this is what happened. It was caused by this, and I started thinking about the logistics of it. And try to, at the same time, think of a way to kick it off that was unique. So what ends up happening is there is a cabal of people that are basically extreme population control Malthusians, basically. They saw the Georgia Guidestones and saw, hey, that's a great idea. We need to, get rid of 95% of the population of the world. So what they do, and just, I wrote this book in 2016, so or before that, actually, it came out in 2016. So what they do is they have a vaccine that is tainted with nanomachines. And basically, if you get the vaccine, the nanomachines begin replicating inside your body. And when they broadcast their signal on Z-Day, it flips the switch, and everybody that has the vaccine turns into zombies. So
Oh.
I've been making a lot of jokes, obviously, well, this is, I didn't mean to predict this, so, and,
well, they have turned into zombies, haven't they?
Right. So, fingers crossed.
No, they have. I mean, think about it.
Well,
NBC.
yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah. Yeah. You're
I
right.
believe CNN.
Yeah. Right. So, but yeah, so, I mean, totally did not plan that. It was just, how would you, if you wanted to spread an ailment, what would be a good way to do it? It's like, well, shoot, what if it's a vaccine company that does it? And, they bribe a bunch of people to, let them, ship it around the world and, going from there. So there's one of my favorite lines in it is when the main character is being told what happened and what caused it. One of the soldiers tells him they're not zombies, they're meat machines. So it's basically kind of a mashup of the Terminator, basically, because you have this nano machine system that's driving a body. So that kind of plays into the fact where, they've been walking around for 8 years and they're kind of starting to rot, but not really. They're mostly just drying out. They're still, and but the bad part about technology is that, programs can change, programs can be updated. And that's kind of what kicks off the main conflict in the first book is the nanomachine, the software, inherent in it. It begins to update itself, and the zombies start changing. They become more dangerous. They become smarter. And it's, so all these people that have, been like the main character, Miles, is a fan of zombies. He loved The Walking Dead. He loved, loved, the Romero movies. And it's like, one of the things I talk about is, people have to almost do like a sanity check when they, saw what was happening, because it's like, okay, am I being punked? Is this a joke? Or is this really happening? So, and basically, just kind of try to, take it from there and see how people that, knew all the rules going in and managed to, carve out a safe place for themselves, how they deal with it once, the zombies start using weapons and start.
They figure out how to use a ladder.
Yeah. Or they, break down the wall and start coming in,
So they have a, oh my God, they're using tools moment.
Yes, exactly. And there's there's a character basically that is kind of a recluse, and he basically sits in his sniper's nest and he's watching them, and he's debating on, he sees the changes, and he doesn't understand why it's happening, but his big debate is do I tell everybody and freak him out, because you have people that reacted well, to the situation, and you have others that just kind of, they broke, mentally.
So are these like closer to the shambling zombies from like Romero, or are these more like rage zombies like from 28 Days?
So the unenhanced ones are shamblers, but then the ones that get the update or get the enhanced nanomachines, they are faster, stronger, harder to kill, for sure. So you can't just shoot.
Cool.
You shoot them in the head and nothing happens.
And are you following like one lone person, like in I Am Legend, or are you following a group of survivors?
So it's a group of survivors initially. It's like I said, it's a community, in a small town in Indiana. There's maybe, I think, I want to say it's a little over 100 people that have survived. They're farming, and they send out scavengers, and they think they got it figured out. And then one day, a team of Navy SEALs comes to them and says, "Hey, we need your help." Because one of the main characters worked at the place where the virus was created, and they need his help to get into their systems to be able to figure out if there's a way to stop it permanently.
Cool.
Yeah. So it has a pretty. There's quite a few. I mean, I have quite a few point of view characters. It shifts around a bit. Miles Matthews is the main character of the first book. The second book mainly follows his uncle, Pete, and his friend Charlie as they kind of go on a mission. Awesome. Thank you. Like your icon there.
Well, one thing that I'm always curious about, because again, this is such a well-treaded genre, is I'm really into how creative and interesting ways people deal with the zombies. I mean, The Walking Dead, for instance, I never really bought that, handguns and crossbows were really the best item to use against zombies.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, for that matter, you think about how zombies attack, and it's like, actually, hockey pads or riot gear would probably be the best thing to wear.
Yes, yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, they're running around. I mean, I understand. Hey, they film it in Georgia. It's hot. They probably don't want to wear all that stuff.
So is there any interesting or creative ways that your characters deal with zombies?
I'm trying to think. I mean, like I said, they have snipers. They just try to thin out the herd. The main thing is just keeping quiet. That was one of the things that always. I kind of started out as a fan of The Walking Dead, but I just got so frustrated because these characters, they knew the rules on how to survive, and then they'd have a fist fight in the middle of the road, and it's like, and they're screaming and yelling at each other. It's like, what are you doing? I mean, yeah, it's dramatic, for television, but people that had survived through this, they're not going to be doing this. It's silly. It's poor writing. So that kind of it kind of turned me off to the show after a while, and I kind of just checked out, because I'm like, man, I'm going to try to, so that was one of my things. I was like, I want to write this thing where the people know, what, yeah, that's a good one. Yeah. Claymore.
Yeah. I always thought, lots of landmines would do it.
So in the second book, it's definitely, they do a lot of grenades, a lot of artillery.
How about a snowplow?
Snowplow, that'd be good. Yeah, if you Larry Correa, he did the snow cutter against the zombie werewolves in one of his books. That was so yeah. Yeah, fire becomes the main weapon, because the nanomachines are relatively fragile, so any extreme heat generally just will destroy them. So improvised flamethrowers, that sort of stuff, phosphorus weapons.
Do strong magnetic fields have any effect?
So the funny story, I put the fourth book in the series is a short story anthology, and I put together with a bunch of writers I'm friends with, and one of them said, "Hey," comes up to me and says, "Hey, what would happen if somebody got bit, they haven't changed yet, and you tased them?" And I'm like, you know what? That would kill them. That would destroy it. Mm-hmm. So hats off to Yakov Merkin, who wrote a great story in Places Beyond the Wild. And that's the thing, is you've got a bunch of survivors that have figured out that if you tase somebody when they get bit, they're going to make it. So they've got a big group of survivors because they've got scars, and they're going strong. So yeah, there are some definite weaknesses with technology and that sort of thing. Um, magnetism or magnetic pulse is definitely something that I'm working on.
Electrified fence.
Yeah, that's an idea. The fifth book, Place for Peace. I'm knock on wood is hopefully going to be the last one. Uh, but who knows? And then hopefully we'll. But the yes, and EMP might come into play in that. That's kind of my plan in my head. So yeah.
Okay, so you said you also have a fantasy series?
Just the urban fantasy. Yeah, just the Paxton Locke. So I have two main series. So
You'd mentioned that you've written several short stories. Is this
yep.
outside of these two series that you have, or?
Yeah, I've done a short story for Chris Kennedy Publishing that just came out for the Hit World series. That was a fun thing to do. It was basically a world where assassination was legalized after 9/11. So it's like private military companies, and it's kind of an urban fantasy mix there. Trying to think, I did a Paxton related short story in an anthology called Secret Stairs. Basically, was kind of inspired by some of the creepypastas off of Reddit, talking about mysterious staircases in the woods that lead to other places. Did a story in a anthology called MAGA 2020, which is kind of a satirical Trump collection of Trump related stories. That was fun to write. Probably didn't make me any fans.
Oh no! You're with the right crowd here.
Yeah, no, I know. I just it's kind of funny. It was an interesting experience for sure. I had fun writing the story, but we had to end up kind of had a revolt of the writers because the initial publisher, when they showed us the cover, it was like, whoa, wait, this was supposed to be like, positive, and this is kind of creepy, and how are you presenting this? So we ended up basically, kind of revolting and taking our anthology elsewhere. So it was kind of an interesting thing there.
Whoa.
Yeah, it was.
Can you get into the details on that, or is that kind of private?
I mean, it's been 5 years ago, so I don't think it's a big deal. Basically, their cover was it was like Trump in a dark room, and he had shelves full of jars with like people's heads in it. It was like
what?
Yeah, it was strange, and we saw it was like not cool at all. Yeah, and I mean, and most of the stories, like there's one of the stories is like Baron Trump is a battle mech pilot, defending the border against North Korean zombies, and I wrote a story about a little girl going to her grandpa's house, and the big surprise is who her grandpa turns out to be, and she's telling her grandpa how awesome the world is, and he's just like, it's terrible. What are you talking about? And yeah, I mean they're all like kind of quirky, funny, offbeat stories, and it's like this does not fit what you pitched us, so. I don't feel comfortable, and pretty much, and it was wild because all the authors, I mean, were, just like, yeah, we don't want to put our name on this. So, and
wow.
Yeah, the publisher was like, fine, we washed our hands of it, and we took it elsewhere, and I got some pizza money. So, I'm trying to think what else I got. I did a couple short stories for John Holmes. One called JTF 13, which is sort of urban fantasy, basically military versus monsters and stuff like that. So very kind of similar to the Paxton Locke universe. Did the 100 Worlds, which is sort of a sci-fi anthology.
How did you get hooked up with so many anthologies?
It's strange, I mean. You make connections with people at cons and on social media, and they hit you up, say, hey, you want to write me a story? And I'm like, sure, yeah. Bill Webb, like the guy he's the guy that put together Hit World. He called me up one day and said, "Hey, you want to do a story for me?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure, yeah." It's funny. I mean, I don't know. I've always said I don't really like reading short stories, but I mean, they're fun to write. You kind of it's a challenge in a way because you have to keep yourself, in a compressed format, and I tend to sometimes ramble a little bit. So
I was going to ask if you prefer short stories or writing novels.
Definitely novels. Yeah, I like being able to stretch my legs a little bit. So I mean, the Z-Day books are huge. I try to keep the Paxton Locke books a little bit shorter, just to make them more. I guess it's just less of a time investment. I guess I spent, I think, almost 2 years writing A Place Outside the Wild, and that's definitely not conducive to this hobby or this profession. People are expecting something a little bit more frequently than that. So,
do you work on? Because you mentioned that you wanted to work on Paxton Locke, but World Z just kept bugging you.
Right?
Do you focus on one book at a time, or do you bounce back and forth?
Right. I try to focus on one book at a time, but sometimes what I'll do, like right now, I'm working on both the 5th Z-Day book and the 6th Paxton Locke book. If I get stuck on a chapter, I'm not sure where I want to go with a scene, then I'll kind of do a jump over to the other one and look through it and try to take off there for a little bit, just kind of keep the words flowing. Sort of like a palate cleanser, I guess.
That's not a bad way to go.
No.
Yeah, it's tricky just because the Paxton Locke books are in first person for the most part. At least the stuff that's from Paxton's point of view, and Z-Day is purely third person. So you have to kind of shift gears a little bit, but there's a mix in the Paxton books, so that helps. Most of the other characters are third person, and I try to keep Paxton as first person, which is probably weird, but nobody's ever complained, I guess. So I think for noirish, especially like Jim Butcher's a huge influence on me, and that's his Harry Crescent books are all first person for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big fan of Lee Child. Most of the Reacher series are first person. So.
Well, that and the detective genre lends itself more to first person than third person.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So what drove you to write?
So I was in 4th grade, and they had a contest to win tickets to a movie, and I thought, I'm gonna write a story. And I wrote a story, and I won tickets to see Land Before Time. It was just kind of like this little flashbulb went off over my head. I'm like, you can make up stuff, and people will give you things for it. So that kind of pretty much ever after that, I whenever it was a free writing assignment in English class, I'd be like, hey, can I write a short story? Hey, can I write a short story? I think I wrote my first book when I was 17 or 18. It's terrible.
It happens.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Well, and I mean, I forget who said it, but a really famous writer once said that you don't really start getting good until you've written 1 million words. So I probably over 1 million at this point, because I've got, I think, at least 3 or 4 trunk books that I've put away. Although, just for fun, I did scan one and put up on my website. I've called it the Free Awful Novel. So I said, hey, if you want to see where I've come from, knock yourself out.
That's not a bad thing to do.
Yeah. I don't know how many people have written it. It's pretty bad. I mean, there's some. The bad part was I was like, as I'm going through this, I'm like, there's some good stuff in there. I just need to, and I'm like, no, no, don't get back into it. Don't clean it up. Just leave it be. you got other stuff to take care of. So yeah.
So what are you reading?
Oh man. I have a stack of books probably 2 feet high on my nightstand that my wife keeps giving me a hard time about. Right now, I am reading a book by my friend Declan Finn called, oh gosh, I'm terrible with White Ops.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So I just started on that, and I'm a terrible friend because he asked me to blurb it for him, and I just now started reading it after it came out. So, Declan, if you're watching this, I'm sorry, buddy.
Oh, we're writers. We're all busy people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I work for a hospital and in IT, and we got hacked in the very beginning of October.
Oh no.
And yeah, basically the last 4 months has been recovering from that. So that has really thrown a wrench in, like, wanting to sit down at a computer and do anything, because that's like all I've done for the last 4 months. So it's been tough. So, but it is what it is.
I used to work for a nonprofit that helped victims of identity theft, so I know how much work goes into breaches and everything.
Yeah. So thankfully, we had good backups and we got a good team, so we're getting back on track. So, but
that's good.
Yeah.
Okay, I gotta ask: is that a 3D printer back there?
Yes. Yeah, I'm actually printing a part for a car right now.
Oh, like a model car or a driving car?
So a friend of mine is restoring a Charger, I think, and he needed an adapter for the air conditioner. So he did a design for me, and I'm printing that for him. So.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. So.
Very cool. I'm kind of in the market for a 3D printer. I haven't quite jumped in yet, but I just saw that. I'm like, oh, what do you have?
it definitely, this is kind of like the 3D printer of Theseus at this point, because I've replaced pretty much everything on it except the frame.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, just, through upgrades and, little gizmos that you attach to it that make it work better, that sort of thing. So.
The filament kind?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, plastic filament. So. I've looked at the resin ones, but I don't really, I guess the fumes on those are pretty bad, so you have to have a pretty well ventilated space, and I don't have that. So
yeah, I've heard people say they've had to devote an entire room to it. So
yeah, or put it out in a garage or something, and my garage isn't heated, so it's like I don't want to do that. So yeah, it does really good. And I think the fun thing about it is I have a son that's 14, and he's really gotten into CAD and stuff like that, designing parts and stuff for his friends, and printing them out for him. So it's been kind of a fun learning experience for him. So and then we printed out headbands for face masks whenever the pandemic first started, to kind of keep the strings off your ears. So we gave those out at the hospital. So
oh, that was nice.
Yeah. So done some fun stuff like that. It's pretty fun. It's I mean, you start just, it's crazy to think that you can just push a button and, a couple hours later you've gotten, like I've got, headphone hangers like you'd buy off Amazon or something, and it's like, I'll just push a button. It'll be here. It'll be done before Prime can get here. So yeah, it's pretty neat.
I love that we can do that now.
Yeah.
Is that something that WorldZee has access to, or no?
So that's one of the interesting. So I dated myself in that I kicked off, the apocalypse in October 2017. So basically anything that kind of came into common use after that, I kind of have to, hand wave around or, say, oh, we got this, prototype thing, kind of thing at, somewhere. So one of the in the Z-Day anthology, I have a story called Black Friday, and basically it's a couple of the characters are doing one of the very first supply runs, to get some stuff, and it's right before Christmas, and they set up a speaker in the parking lot to kind of serve as a distraction device, and I really wanted to have a certain song because this one character is a jokester, and it would just be funny. And I had to check, and it was like, oh shoot, that album came out 2 months later, so it's like that wouldn't work. So I had to find songs that were, out, on disc before the end of the world. So it's kind of fun.
That is interesting. So are you finding that as the years go by, you're doing more and more research to make sure you don't add something that didn't exist?
Not too much, just because at the point now, the fifth book is like 16 years after, so it's very little zombies in Little House on the Prairie kind of thing. It's like they still have tractors and biodiesel and stuff, but a lot of it is horses and wagons, and the technology is kind of starting to break down, and it's held back for emergency use, that sort of thing. So it's not as prevalent as we would consider it for ourselves.
Well, we're coming up to the last 15 minutes of the show, so now is the time. If you have any questions for our guest, you can ask about his books, about anything random, or, as always, writing technique.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, I haven't even looked at the chats yet.
So who would you say was one of, if not the big influence on your writing?
Probably number one would be Dean Koontz. I have read pretty much everything he's ever written, and I think he's probably the only person I would fangirl over if I actually met him, because it's one of the surreal things about about this is like just meeting people whose stuff I've read, and it's like, oh hey, I read your stuff, and they're like, oh yeah, I read that story you wrote, that's cool, and it's like, holy crap, yeah, so that's my bucket list is Dean Koontz. So hopefully if I ever meet him, I don't embarrass myself. Odd Thomas, his character, and he wrote like 5 or 6 books with Odd Thomas, is a pretty big influence on the Paxton Locke series. Just I think because the characters are similar in that they're both very scrappy and positive, and they want to do the right thing, and basically shaking their fist at evil more than anything else. So
okay. And what's in the future for you?
Well, once I finish up the next PAX book and the next CD book, great question. I've got a space opera-ish series kind of sketched out that I want to write, and I kind of want to. It's going to be a 3-book series, and I kind of want to do that all at once. So that would be my next. That's my next after that. So.
Okay, and then this is more of a comment.
Yes, yeah, and it was actually pretty good. Anton Yelchin, I think it was his name. He played Odd Thomas. He died, unfortunately, not too long after he did the movie, but it was actually a pretty decent movie. No, but Nick Cole has done a series called Forgotten Realm that is absolutely dynamite. I know I shouldn't probably go be talking about other people's stuff, but
Well, why?
that is like
Everybody wants to know what's good to read.
Nick is like his stuff is great, and
It is great.
His the Forgotten Realms series is awesome, and it's basically a team of rangers that get transported into, you know, a world with orcs and giants and, you know, vampires, and, you know, and they take them out. You know, it's pretty cool.
Okay.
Cool. Let's see. More from Samuel talking about Odd Thomas. More. Let's see here.
Just keep rolling through myself here. There's a lot of comments. Yeah, I need to. Somebody had a comment about putting a dome over or box around the printer. I probably do need to do something like that. It helps the temperature too, and that's important. If you have an enclosure around the printer, it keeps you don't want it to cool off too fast, because if it does that, it'll start to curl and won't stay straight. So yeah, that's one of the main reasons for that. So
that makes sense.
All right. Well, since no questions are popping up, I'm going to ask a old standby question that our friend Owen always asks.
Oh,
okay.
In honor of Owen, because I don't think he's in the chat today.
Guyver, yes or no?
Guyver, the movie?
Are you familiar with the Guyver?
I have seen parts of it. I have never seen the whole thing. I know what you're talking about, though. But yeah, I've never seen the whole thing.
You're a step ahead of most of our guests.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think my bio. It's been so long since I wrote it, but I think it says I like bad sci-fi movies. I've seen. I lived out in the middle of nowhere for a long time, and basically I went through the video store, one step at a time. So I've seen a lot of movies. So.
Well, we have a listener who is just absolutely obsessed with the Guyver, and for a while he had a thing where he would literally badger every person we brought on about, well, have you watched it? What do you think? Isn't it great?
Yeah.
Oh man, I'm trying to think. I bought Tremors on 4K. That was my. I geeked out about that pretty hard.
Tremors is great.
Yeah,
that's a classic.
To my shame, I haven't seen it yet. So.
Oh man, I mean, just for the scene in Michael Gross's basement.
Yeah,
you got to see that movie. Oh man, my wife makes fun of me because, it's Sunday afternoon. I'm like, what should I watch? Oh, I'll watch Tremors. She's like, you're watching this crap again?
No, that's what we do. I mean, right now we're working through Ultra Q. So
okay, so yeah. Well, what other B movies or cult sci-fi is on your list of high up there?
Let me think about this.
Uh-oh.
Well, I think the question was so bad it killed the connection.
Oh no, what happened?
What, have we lost our broadcast?
No, it's looking like we're still on, I think.
Well, let's check. I mean, I don't know. YouTube's been really weird with us lately. I don't know what the deal is. No, it's just us. We're on the air still. So
did a rodent get out and eat a cord?
No, we're on the air. It's all good. All right. Well, I guess.
Samuel says, I had to watch the 2005 anime to get an understanding of the Guyver after Owen kept going on.
Sorry about that. I clicked on the right thing. I was just looking through something and rambling away, and I'm like, oh wait, I got the tab closed. So
I hate it when that happens.
Yeah. So we're talking about B movies. It's not really sci-fi, but I got this for Christmas, and I was probably more excited than I should have been. But I don't know if have you seen the Dragnet movie with Tom Hanks and Dan Aykroyd?
Yeah.
Yes, that movie's great.
So I was like your typical latchkey kid. My mom worked second shift, and I basically had run of the apartment complex when I was a kid. And, there was one summer, I think I must have watched Red Dawn and Dragnet and every other thing that was on HBO like 20 times or more. And it's like, I probably shouldn't have been watching this stuff, but because I watched it, I watched it after I got it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so much stuff in here that a kid shouldn't have been seeing. So, but that's kind of the story of my life. I conned my way into my mom getting me an adult library card in I think the 3rd or 4th grade, and I started checking out Stephen King books, and I had a teacher like open up my backpack, and I had a copy of It in there, and I was like 8, and she's like, "What are you doing with this?" I'm like, "I'm reading it."
Sounds like me. That was me with Xanth.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I read all those, but that came later probably. I got more into. I started out more pure horror, I guess, as a kid for whatever weird reason, but I definitely found sci-fi later on, and that definitely became more of my thing, urban fantasy, sci-fi, and yeah. But so go mom.
All right. Well, then what was your
not
favorite 80s horror?
Oh man, probably Nightmare on Elm Street, because my little brother and I would watch them and we would just die laughing. It's weird, I guess, but even as kids, we're like, this is so dumb, It's like, or Friday the 13th, it's like, this makes no sense. They're sprinting away, and Jason's just like derp, 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 and he's always catching them. It's like that doesn't make any sense, I don't know. Yeah, just because we never really took it seriously. I think, which was probably that's kind of how I go through life. Is I try to laugh about stuff. I try not to get too worked up and find the humor and everything. So
that's a good way to be.
Yeah,
Okay, so we're down to the last 4 minutes. So even though all the links are in the description, why don't you do some promoting?
Sure. Yeah. You can check out my blog at daniel-humphreys.net. I probably don't post on there as much as I should, but that's also linked to my Twitter. And then that should also be linked to my Facebook fan page. So pretty much everything through that hub, you get pretty much what I'm doing or what I'm talking about at the moment. Twitter's kind of fun sometimes, just because. I had surgery yesterday, and yes, I was posting on Twitter on painkillers last night. So I need to go back and check, make sure I didn't say anything too crazy. But
you doing okay?
Yeah, no, I'm fine. Yeah, I just had some kidney stones. So yeah.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, that was fun.
I'm glad you're doing better.
Yeah. So it's the nice thing about working at a hospital. Everybody. It's like, oh, it's the IT guy. We gotta do a good job here. So.
And your books are on Amazon and on Audible.
Yep.
Any other online stores? Do you sell them through your own website?
I do not yet. That's something I probably need to do. The Paxton series, you can get, it's wide, so you can get that at Books A Million or Barnes & Noble. Those are available pretty much everywhere. The Z-Day series is Amazon exclusive. So it's also on Kindle Unlimited if you prefer that.
And if you were to urge any of, well, actually, no, Kindle Unlimited is great because if you read a lot of books, if you want to try things out.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah, that opens the door to so many things. We've got it just for that reason alone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've been shocked. You'll go through about 20 books that aren't good, but you'll always come across that one that you didn't expect.
Yeah, for sure.
If you were to recommend a starter book for you, what would you want people to read?
I would say Fade, just because that's the series probably that is closest to my heart. You're not supposed to have a favorite kid, but I have a favorite kid. It's Paxton. So the zombie's the annoying kid, someone that always beats on the cage in my head, wants to have it get out of there for a while. So
all right.
Very cool.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Yes,
thanks for having me.
You.
Enjoyed it.
This has been an awful lot of fun. Thank you so much, everyone in the chat, for joining us this evening. And definitely, please go check out Daniel's books, links in the description below, and also go check out his website.
Oh, and by the way, keep to the audience, keep recommending people, because we have lined up guests that you've suggested for the next 2 months. So I appreciate that, even if I don't write back. Thank you.
All right, and thanks, everyone. Have a great evening.
Thank you.